Hi folks, I'm going to be demoing some map layout and map editing, cartographic techniques for ArcGIS, and this will relate specifically to your Lab 12 assignment. There's so many different options that we have when we're working with maps and creating hard copy maps. But I wanted to show you some of those skills and give you all some practice at those. And so I've created a base map of some data. Let me just go ahead and jump over to the base layers that you guys have in the Lab 12 folder under GIS courses. So coming up here in a minute. And so what I've done is just kind of laid out some basic data for you to work with in terms of using your there we go. That's what something approximating what you're going to have to start off with. And I was again just trying to kind of give you some guidance in terms of something to work from, and also a little bit of flexibility. But I've structured this such that you're going to be working on a map for a watershed in Shasta County. And in my instructions, I have you starting off by choosing one of the watersheds. This is sort of laid out. You can kind of point and click. There's some layers in here that you can use to get reference to, but you can see the individual watersheds and their names. There's Squaw Creek watershed. You'll notice some of these upper watersheds, some of the data sets may sort of cut out on a little bit. If you're really interested in working in one of those data sets, we may have to look at pulling in some additional data for you. So you're going to select one of these watersheds. And once you've done that, you're going to go ahead and create a map from that. And so what you can do is you could start off by just saving this map document if you want. I do recommend that you create a geodatabase. And so in your personal folder for the Z drive, rather than copying the whole folder with all the data in it, you can just go ahead and in your own personal folder, you can just create a Lab 12 folder. And then once you've created the Lab 12 folder, if you just go ahead and create a file geodatabase and whatever you want to call this guy, and that's just going to be a repository for some of the things that you're going to be doing in here. So the first order of business will be to select your watershed, and remember this is your interactive selection capability. So once you've selected your watershed, you can just export that watershed, okay, and you can export it and then of course direct the output to the geodatabase that you've just created. And having done that, and again, I want to give you a little bit of flexibility here, but this is kind of a nice practice if you're going to be focusing in on an area. Then what you might find yourself doing is wanting to grab the roads, for example. So one option is to use your select by location, and with select by location you specify the layer that you're interested in, you specify the selection layer, and in this case I'm going to use the selected feature where it intersects, and so I can apply that guy. Now I've selected the roads, and then I can take those roads that I have selected and I can export those roads into my geodatabase as well. Okay, and again, there's my geodatabase, so I would just name these, roads. And then of course once you've done that, you want to be sure to add that layer back in. Okay, so I'm going to say yes to the add back in. Now in some cases you might want to remove the original just so that you would avoid some confusion, but you could also make the case that leaving those more extended roads in would be beneficial, in that it would allow you to see what it was that you're working from. Again, once I've decided that on the watershed that I'm working with, I could go ahead and turn off these other watersheds. This is actually the example that I came up with. You can see that I've selected the hydro layer for this particular area, selected the streams, and so you don't see any of the streams outside of the area of interest. Okay, so once we've done that, you can see in this case I have some Shasta places. I've also got some, within that Shasta places, I've got schools in there as well. So let's go back to Shasta places for a minute. One of the things that you'll notice in here is that there are historical as well as contemporary places in here. So if we look at the attribute table and we scroll across these things, we could see the quadrangle that they fall in, the particular feature that they have. You can see all these are listed as PPL, that stands for populated places. But one of the options that we have here is, if you can see that I've labeled the feature, if I were to go ahead and convert my labels to annotation, and the simplest version of this is to save it in the map. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this thing in the map, and once I've done that, using my pointer tool, I now have the ability to be able to select features, and I can choose, for example, if I was interested in deleting those things that were the historical features, the labels for the historical features, I could do that. I can also move features around, and in some cases you may find yourself wanting to do that, especially if you choose to use the option for masking the surrounding features. Okay, and so I'll show you how this mask works. Let me just go ahead and turn back on the county roads just so that there's some other stuff in there. Go ahead and clear the selected features out of there. And if I was only interested in seeing the things that were within this watershed boundary for Stillwater Creek, I could, from the data frame properties, specify that I'm going to use what's called clip to shape, and I specify the outline of the features that I want to clip to. And my preference is to put a border on it, because otherwise it turns out a little bit choppy. We can go ahead and apply this thing and say OK, and we end up with something like that. Now, be aware that when you do that, you eliminate everything from being visible outside of that perimeter, and that can be challenging. For example, if you have a label like this one that was called Government Camp and ends up hanging halfway in and halfway out. Okay, so if I want that thing to appear, I'm going to have to make sure that it's entirely in, or it's going to be chopped out. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the roads layer that I have in here. This roads layer is fairly complicated, and if I were to come in, let's just go ahead and use the, I had selected some other roads, but I'll just go ahead and use this one. If you just went in and, you always want to take a peek at your labels to make sure that you're labeling things the way you want them to. You can, of course, change the symbology and so forth. And in this case, if I go ahead and label this thing, it looks a little busy. And again, I can choose to use the convert to annotation, and then I could select individual roads that are smaller roads that I might want to delete out. But one of the things that I would like to recommend that you do is that if we look in the table, we can see that they give us street type. And if we look through this, we see things like local and highway and so forth. So what I would like to suggest that you do is just to practice our symbology, we're going to do a unique classification on this. And we are going to come in and say, specify the type. Okay, so street type. And we'll add all values. And this is fairly busy. There's actually a lot of values in here. And I've done a little bit of legwork on this thing and concluded that if you grab everything, I just use my shift key, and I'm going to right click and say group. Okay, and now I have this 4 categories instead of whatever that was, 12 or so. And now I've got freeway. Okay, and so let's go ahead and grab this, and we'll make the freeway a dark red. And we'll go ahead and grab this, but let's make this just a slightly smaller size. Okay, so I'm going to say 1.25. Let's see what that looks like. Okay, and then the collateral. These are slightly bigger roads. Okay, and so we'll use the collateral that way. And then for these other ones, let's just make them kind of a lighter pink. Let's see if we can get them to drop out. Okay, so I'll go ahead and hit apply, and there we have it. Now it looks like I may have cut things off a little bit here. I actually did this earlier, and I'm not sure why we're seeing the roads cutting off the way that we are right there. I'll show you my map in a second. Something kind of funky happened there. But the general idea is that you have the ability to be able to distinguish particular roads, emphasize particular roads. And the other thing that I would like to suggest is that in the roads, well, first of all, under properties, if I'm going to put this in the legend, I want to make sure that the reader sees something that they can understand. Okay, and those 3-letter codes are not easy to understand. So I'm going to call these major roads, and I'm going to call these other roads. Okay, and again, there we go, so the rest of it came in there. I fully suspect that, these maps will not necessarily be perfect when you start getting down to this level. Of course, the base maps are easy to use. We're not going to use base maps here because we're practicing some of these skills. But once I've done that, again, I can choose to convert those labels to annotation. But rather than that for the roads, what I would like to suggest is that you use your draw menu, and you'll remember that you have the draw menu here in your menu options. And once you have chosen that, you can choose the label tool, and then from there you can actually click on individual features. Okay, so that was State Highway 299, so we'll go ahead and label that. And if you happen to have Interstate 5, I'm going to show you a little trick here, which is on this particular version, when you click on it, it brings this label tools, and you can choose styles, and you can actually choose your interstate highway symbol. And I hit on that particular one. It actually missed the road and put in something called holiday for that road, but I can actually take this guy now and edit it to whatever I want. Okay, and so I'm just going to say Interstate 5, and I'll say apply, and we'll just drag that thing on top. And of course we can grab the other one that we had before and delete that guy. Try that again, delete, there it goes. Now we have a nice looking symbol on our map, and again we can come through and edit individual labels. Okay, so if we wanted to go through and choose our get our label tool back here, and I'm going to go ahead and we'll just choose a simple style here, and again, it's missing the layer, so I'll zoom in a little bit closer. Okay, so there's